Right, here we are we're just waiting for this to come up. This beautiful woman here, Carly Pepin. Carly is an international speaker and consultant specializing in human behavior. She's based in Los Angeles, and she travels to share the powerful message that no matter what your story, your line of work, what part of the world you are from, all people struggle with their own perceived flaws and voids, both personally and professionally, and that's okay. Yes. Carly has dedicated her life to master and teach how to see beyond the surface and tap into the core essence of an individual, to uncover the deeper roots that prevent them from creating a life that is inspiring and fulfilling. And I'm going to just add right here, and sexy.
I'll take it.
Yes. So welcome, Carly. Carly's one of my super soul sister besties.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy to have her here. Carly, what does on the other side of fear mean to you?
Yes. Okay. So fear is such an interesting thing. Sometimes we even perceive we have the fear of the unknown, but we don't ever have the fear of the unknown. It starts in the mind and it originates in the mind. And so therefore the content of how the fear was actually existing was created in the mind. And so when we get to the other side of fear, the goal is not just to say, oh, I have these fears, and it could be whatever fear you have in relationships or sexuality or business or love or finances, but it's like, where did that actually come from? And if we can learn how to ask ourselves some deeper questions, we get deep into the subconscious mind and we get those insights. And as you know, when we know what to work on, we know where to do the work.
Beautiful. Okay, so can you just give us an overview? Because obviously right now we are in the middle of probably the biggest fear situation we've ever had in our life. So how can we deal with the fear around the coronavirus, the isolation, and everything that's coming to the surface right now?
Yeah.
What is that about?
That's the cool thing, is that the coronavirus is giving everyone an opportunity to kind of look at their life in a different way. And it's been really inspiring to see with clients and just all different people, the different fears that get brought up. Now, your fears are going to be so specific to what's important to you. You know, like even me, when I walked into that grocery store and everyone's panicking about toilet paper and canned goods and foods, my first fear was, holy crap, I'm going to gain a lot of weight. My health is going to go down if I just eat all this boxed food, because that's what's important to me.
Oh,
so I went on a cleanse, girl. Like, I went on a cleanse. It was hysterical. Yeah,
exactly.
totally.
I'm going on a cleanse too. But my fear, I've said it several times, my fear was the conspiracy theories, like the fear of authority figures that are trying to fuck with us.
Yes, and everyone has like something so unique to them, you know? And it's so funny, even, you know, one of the clients I worked with, her family is so important to her. So her fear was being isolated from her family. And I had another client who his health is really important, so he has a fear about getting sick. Another client whose business is so important, and his biggest fear was if his business was going to collapse during this, you know, pandemic. So every person's fear, it actually, it's cool, because if we let it overtake us and we let the fear overpower us in a sense, we don't actually get to know what it really means. And it gives us insights as to our authentic self as well, which is really cool. So when we think about diving into what the coronavirus means to you, it's like, well, what specific fears has it actually brought up to you? You know, you had the authority stuff, and I had the stuff around health, among other things. Like, my boyfriend also lives in another country, so that's a little bit tricky as well. So we had fears as well, kind of in that regards, and we can go tackle and work on where the root of those fears come. Now, you know, coming from a personal standpoint, I have a lot of stuff on body and health and, you know, image issues. So I've had to work on all of that, like in regards to just identifying the fears and the deeper root, like, where are my image issues that I'm afraid to gain weight? You know, like, where does that come from? And the guy who has the, you know, the business, and it was like, what are the bigger issues behind not being able to have that finances? And it was making sure that he could provide for his family. And then in addition, like, the deepest one was that he didn't perceive that he could be an authority in the world and he could make an impact and a difference. And we actually got to work on that, which is so cool, you know? So it's like, sometimes we just don't want to have these fears, but to me, the challenges are insights.
Totally. It's like whatever. Oh, another thing for me is like, where am I going to be? Like,
Yeah.
did I make the wrong decision? And coming back from Mexico, like, I have this like home situation going on. So I have had to deal with like trusting that I'm in the right place and everything's the perfection of the universe. Yes.
It's just such a beautiful journey in itself. Like, getting to look at that in your life. It's so cool.
It's so cool. Okay. So on the other side of fear, what, like, how does that, what happens when we're on the other side of fear?
The other side of fear is taking us to the next step and the next level. So in life, as a consultant, one of my favorite things that I get to do with people is, you know, I help them through their challenges, but I also create new challenges for you. That's my reality, and that's what I love to do. Because I don't actually want you to stop moving forward. I want you to create new challenges, bigger challenges that are aligned and authentic.
Challenges.
Totally.
Love it. You're a challenge fanatic.
I'm a challenge fanatic. What's happening? Where is it? What is it? Let's get to the other side and see what's next. And it's really cool because I'll give you even an example in sexuality. So I had a client who came to me one time and she had a fear of being with her partner sexually. You know, they'd already been together for a while. They'd already been living together. And the most amazing thing would happen. She was so scared that her body would shut down when they would get sexual and she'd fall asleep. It was like narcolepsy. It was so crazy. So when we got to the deeper roots of it, she had a fear of losing control and losing power and being manipulated. And that actually went back to her family. So even though, you know, there's that aspect where it's actually linked to sex and sexuality, because she perceived her partner as a powerful man, you know, so when that power came in, she shut down because it brought back old trauma from the past. So we had to clear the old trauma. We did a little work on the present, you know, we found the root. We got to the other side by like actually working on that trauma. And then she's able to be sexual with her partner. Like, she stopped falling asleep. They have a sex life. It's really cool. So the other side of fear is getting the things that you want that maybe the fear is preventing you from having.
Yes. And what I love about you and your energy, I mean, this girl and I have spent a lot of time together, is that you make it so fun. You make these challenges, you bring such a lightness and a joy to fear.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Because in so many ways it is fun if we see life as a play and our minds as a play, and we get to play with our fear. We get to play with what is happening. And as long as we have whatever tools, we also have very different tools. You and I are like totally, we can like argue about our tools.
I love our conversations.
But the difference between it's like, do you have the tools or do you not have the tools? And if you have your toolkit, what works for you, then life begins to become much more of a joyful play.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the more that you do the work, the more that you do like the inner work, it gets a little bit easier and easier every time. There's still going to be those situations and circumstances that slam us so hard, that hit like the core of our essence and our being and bring up all of our stuff. And it could be tears and anger and yelling and frustration. But even in those moments, if you've done the work to such a degree that in those moments when you're frustrated and challenged, you still think, what is on the other side? And in the back of your mind, it still just runs in your head, I can figure this out. Like, I know there's got to be a reason this is happening. And I know I'm freaking out right now, but I'm going to sit down tonight. I'm going to sit down tomorrow. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get my friends. I'm going to call my coaches. I'm going to call my consultants. Like, I'm going to figure it out. So when we have that perception that no matter what, something is there for us instead of blocking us, then even in the back of our mind, we're already starting to like strategize and figure out how to get to that next level. And I love it so much because it's like you get to learn about the deep, I love it so much. Not just the deepest parts of ourselves, but the deepest parts of others, just by being able to be present with you and witnessing you, transform your challenges and transform your fears and get to where you are today. Like I've gotten to understand and know the deepest cores of you and your soul. And that is special to me. And when we do the work on ourselves, we actually get that part of ourselves too. So it's like, it's cool as a teacher, you get it with your students and you get a really intimate connection. And when you have it with yourself, you get that intimacy with self. It's really my favorite thing.
It is her favorite. And it's totally like, I was funny. I was talking about my because I do these rapid transformational hypnotherapy sessions once a month. Yeah. And my sister was like, how do you have things to work on? And I was like, there's always something for me, because that's actually my passion in life. Again, it goes back to our values, and something that I value is being on that like path of freedom and letting go. And there's like always something that I can work on, because I'm so passionate about getting to the next levels of freedom and joy and abundance and all the things. So it's actually a pleasure for me to do that kind of like work.
The deeper.
I know it is for you too.
Yeah, it's really cool. It is like this never-ending journey. And it's so funny because even when I'll talk to clients too, and sometimes I'll get on the phone, I'll be like, I just don't know what I want to work on this week. And they're like, and they'll laugh and they'll say, but I know you can find something. And I'm like, you bet your ass I can find a deeper something, because there's always something for us to work on. If you think about it, we're only in charge of like our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. And every second is a perception. And every second that we have a misperception, it stores in our subconscious mind, and that's something that we can work on. And how many seconds have you been alive? It's infinite number of possibilities for you to be able to transform yourself and grow.
Okay, so can we give a little example of your work with fears?
Yeah. So another fear, well, even I worked on the coronavirus aspect, So one of the clients I worked on coronavirus with fairly recently, he was really stressed out. He was worried about going on a business trip, and he was worried about his son, right? And the fears of, if he went on this flight, could he get the coronavirus? Could he get his son and his family and all that jazz? So that was a big fear for him. These people are so important to him. And what we wound up uncovering is that, he didn't want his son to go through something very specific, a specific type of pain and a specific type of experience in life where, he was sick or unwell. Now, the interesting thing is when I started to ask questions, we found out that there was a time in his life when he was sick and unwell, and that he didn't want his son to actually go through his own pain. So we went back to the moments and the experiences of the pain that he went through. And what we actually did is you go and you learn everything that you gained from that experience. Like, what did you learn? How did it help you grow? Like, what did it give you today that you wouldn't have had if you were sick, and all these circumstances? And when he could see how it gave him the life he had today, including his son, he became grateful for the experience, got tears of gratitude in his eyes. And then I asked him, I said, if now I could take this experience away from your son, would you want to, knowing what it gave you? And he said, no. He said, if he has to go through it, I will be by his side, and I can help him. And I know I can be the father to help him get through it. But if he has to go through it to get what I got, I would love for him to, be able to live his own life and have his own experiences. And then the fear is gone. Yeah.
So our fear, so what I'm hearing you say, and I just completely agree 100%, is that our fear is when we can see that every single thing that we have ever gone through and will ever go through is happening for us.
Yes.
And is awakened. It's our awakening.
Yeah.
Who we really are. And that there is nothing that has ever happened, even the biggest, craziest, most awful things that have not helped us to become
Mhm.
everything that we want to be,
Yeah.
even though it's like really, really, really hard to go through those times, and not to underestimate
No.
how difficult some of that trauma
And how
is.
strenuous it can be when you're in it. It's just draining and exhausting and oh, it's hard.
And
Yeah.
I mean, for some people, it's like we don't, in some ways, we don't even know what real trauma is
Mhm.
compared to certain people in other countries. But then, I've also, sometimes you go to other countries where we're like, these people have it so much worse than us. But then sometimes you're in these other places and you're like, yeah, but they actually have this lightness of being.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about India earlier on, like
Yeah.
India, I'm thinking of them so much and what they're going through.
Yeah.
But if you really hang out with the Indians, they are the most surrendered culture. Like they understand surrender in such a deep way.
Yeah.
And so that's like, there's a gift in all and everything that we go through. And if we can
Yeah.
see it, so what you do is you help people understand at a core level the gift
Mhm.
that's been given, to the point where they feel tears of gratitude for everything they've gone through.
Yeah, that's what we want to get to. I love the example you gave of India too, because it's like when we're put in such crazy, challenging circumstances and there's so much poverty there, you have no choice but to learn how to surrender, And coming from, the United States and LA and being in a middle class family, like that's actually been a harder lesson for me is surrender. Because I haven't had things taken away to that degree in a sense where I've had to surrender. So it's so beautiful that you bring up that example that even though they're in those challenges, like they're getting something different, an experience that I didn't get to have. And I'm learning surrender in a whole new way. It's really freaking cool. I love that you brought that up. And yeah, I love it. And yeah, you continue. I love it.
Let's talk about sexual trauma, because this is
Yes.
something that's very, very difficult for people to get their heads around. I mean, all of like, including me, it's really, really difficult. Like, with
Yeah.
raped, and how can
Yeah.
that possibly be
Yeah.
anything? And even right now, I feel almost like a little shameful even saying,
Oh, I'm
could
so
that
glad
be
you brought it up.
a
Yeah.
positive thing for someone? So
Yeah.
I would love for you to talk about that.
I'll give you some examples because I've worked with some pretty extreme examples, and then even with myself. So I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to go through it when I was younger, where I had a rape with my best friend's dad, and when I was about 7 years old. So I'm grateful to have that opportunity to have shifted through it, so that people know that I'm also not coming from a space of just like, oh, well, she just says that. How do you know it's going to work on something really that bad? Like you really can shift it, and
And can you just give us a little example of
yeah.
what did you get from that
Yeah.
horrible situation?
So even back then, right, it definitely had shut me down as a kid. I chose to black out the memory. It was too traumatic for me to actually talk about, but also I had guilt and shame for the role that I perceived that I played in it, which can often happen for individuals who have gone through something like this, and sometimes maybe you were flirty in the beginning or something simple. Like even as a kid, I was curious and I was slightly flirtatious, and I had so much guilt for the curiosity because in the beginning it's soft and gentle and easy and calm, that because I didn't stop it in the beginning, I had guilt, right? And so it's to know that as people who have gone through this, we also can harbor an extreme amount of guilt for the role we perceive we played in that and judge not only the other person, but ourselves. And that's a tricky component of it, and why it's so important to dive in there and clear that stuff. And, so I had to go through during those times and see how it actually helped me. And because I shared that first part where I was curious about sex and sexuality at such a young age, which we all are. I mean, we have genitals and they already are turned on, as soon as we touch them and you're like, whoa, cool feeling, right? So it's so normal for kids to actually be interested in sex and sexuality. But I had so much of that guilt and shame. Now I can even see during that time, like because I went through that experience, it gave me permission to be a kid again. I was trying to grow up. I was trying to catch up with everyone. I was trying to grow up faster. I was trying to be more like my peers. And that was one of the biggest gifts for me, is that it gave me permission to be a kid again. It gave me permission to be that person.
How did it give you that permission?
it shut me down from sexuality for a while. It scared the crap out of me. And so I just went internal. I went internal. And also that started to give me the process of thinking about things. When I went internal, I started to think about why things happen. I started to want to understand more of why things happen. And it's like that moment, that defining moment in that my life that made me want to answer the question why. And I tell you, like my parents will tell you about it, and my sister, and they'll just tell you, I just kept on wanting to know why. Like someone would give me information, I'd be like, but why, but why, but why? You know, so it gave me that unending, like wanting to know what was going on, because it gave me so much confusion. And without that confusion, I wouldn't have actually gone through what I've gone through today to study and be able to help people to the degree that I can and study human behavior. Like I would have just stopped at a certain point. And I don't ever want to stop now. And part of that gift, and these are just the bigger gifts, right? Part of that gift is going through that experience, having that pain and not understanding what's going on or what's happening to me. And so it's like, man, that gave me everything I am today. And if you ask me if I want to take it away, I'm like, how could I? And even now when I talk about it, I get choked up because I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to have what I love my life, and I love what I do. And I can't imagine ever taking away. So to get to gratitude where it's like, no, I wouldn't change my past. Yes, I would go through it again. If I have to go through it again in the future based off of life circumstances and experiences, I can get to the other side. It'll be fucking hard, but I can get to the other side. So that's my example. A really beautiful example with a client I'm working with now. She came to me specifically for a rape, you know, and it was crazy when you go through someone's life and their specific experiences. Like she wouldn't have moved if she hadn't gone through this challenge. She didn't talk to it about anyone. She completely stopped working. She started getting supported by her partner. He didn't even know it was happening, but she never would have made that life shift if she didn't do it. And then she also went inward. She also started to understand more of who she was, her purpose. And by the time she took a couple-year break, she came back to her old city, renewed and refreshed and alive. And she's living an entirely different life, and she's a different person than she was before. And when I ask her, I say, would you have done that if you didn't have this experience? And she said, no. And then you say, what would your life be like if you didn't have that experience and you stayed and you go through it? And I'm like, shit, do you really want that? And she's like, no. She's like, I get it. I fucking get it. And it's crazy when we can go through and look at it. And if you ask yourself the question so many times until you get to that gratitude, you'll realize that even the most challenging experiences are sometimes there to take us out of the most challenging slumps, the most challenging downs, the most challenging highs when we have too much pride. You know, so those are a couple really great examples. One crazy example that I want to give you guys, because this one probably more crazy for people, is I worked with a young girl who was 15 years old, and when she was 12, she was involved in the sex trade industry. Not directly, but an individual that she knew, her stepfather, actually was in that industry. So he was also making videos with her and her boyfriend at the time, and he was sexual with her. So you would think, how can someone get through that, you know? But we went through it, same thing. You go through and you see what it gave her. And this is only within a couple years, you know, like 3 years later. And as she started to see what it gave her, she had gratitude for what she went through and gratitude for the experience. And it's really given her a new path and a new life today. And when you let go of that stuff, man, I tell you, girl, like, you know, when you let go of something heavy, it feels like you've lost so much weight, like pounds and pounds off your shoulder, off your soul, you know? Yeah. So cool examples and experiences, but yes, there's another side. Yeah.
It's just making me, I was actually laying in bed this morning just thinking,
Yeah.
like, I do feel like I have this sort of lightness of being that I have never had before.
Yeah.
And that I'm just kind of like, I'm able to be so much more, not that there's not still loads of stuff, but like,
Yeah.
able to be more chill and more, and just genuinely happy.
Yeah.
Most of the time. And I'm like, gosh, I wish I could have just been like this all around. And I'm like, no, you don't, because I wouldn't even know what that means, what that looks like. If I
Yeah.
hadn't gone through the ringer on so many occasions, then I can just appreciate what it feels like to be in the simple vibration of joy that's not even about external circumstances, but is just about just the balanced feeling of being a human.
Yeah. And this is why you're my soul sister. Because we have so much to talk about in this arena and we love working through our stuff. So this is definitely why you're my soul sister when you wake up and have moments like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what would be one tool that Carly would offer out of her toolbox to our...
Yes. Well, I did create a freebie. So I did create a mini course, but before I even talk, I don't even want to talk about that yet. Because one thing that you can just ask yourself questions today, right? Is with everything that you're going through, like any challenge that you're going through present day, what is it giving you permission to do that you didn't get to do before? Like, what are you allowing yourself to do that you didn't get to do before? Now, for some people, like example with, you know, the business people that I have, like they have just completely freaking reframed their systems and their structure, and they brought everything online in an industry where things aren't online. So revolutionize the industry, right? But maybe you don't love work. I have individuals who are spending this time, you know, redoing their body, doing the cleanses. Like some women who are like, I'm not going to wear makeup for like a month because I'm going to let my skin heal. You know, like if you're, you know, what are you doing? Are you doing physical exercise? Are you not? Are you taking the time to read or watch movies? Like, what is it that you're actually getting to do that you didn't get to do before as a result of this virus? And get grateful for the new opportunity and experience instead of like getting too caught up in all that fear. You know, so those are the best questions that you could ask. And even, you know, talking to you today, like I wouldn't have had time to make that freebie, you know, the mini course, if I wasn't stuck at home, and I can't fly right now. So I'm like, great, I'm stuck at home. What am I going to do? I'll make a mini course. Cool. You know? And then, yeah. Oh,
Can you deal with one of my fears?
Yeah, what is it?
Okay, so I'm having a fear around, like, I have zero fear of getting on camera and sharing all my stuff.
Yeah.
My fear is organizing this Facebook group so that people can actually find the videos, and and be like with all the techie stuff.
Okay. Well, the first thing that I think just to acknowledge is learning how to delegate, because I like techie stuff, and now I'm helping you, right? Yeah, I'm like, I actually like some of the techie stuff, and by you just asking for help, you've delegated the thing. And to girl, first thing, just to remove the fear of even having the fear, like without having that, you can't be a leader. You can't be a leader without learning to delegate, because we can't do everything on our own. So that very fear gives you permission to go ask someone else to do it, and then I come in and help you.
Deep fear that people are wanting to watch these videos and they can't because they can't find it, and I'm having people message me, tell me this.
Yeah, well, and let me ask you too, because if they don't watch the videos, what do you perceive will happen? What does that actually mean to you if they don't watch the videos?
Well, I'm putting my heart and soul in this, so it's like that it's like pointless for me to be doing all of this if people can't watch it who want to watch it.
Okay. And then I'll ask you like even deeper dives. It's like, when have you put your heart and soul into a person or something else? And it could be family or partners where it hasn't been reciprocated and it's felt like a waste of time.
Well, I mean, I'll just stick with work. Like so many, like when I did that huge course a few years ago, and it didn't pan out. Yeah.
So for you, it'd be going back to those experiences where you put your heart and soul into something and nothing pans out, and going to see how it helped you and what you learned, you know, because and anyone who is an entrepreneur, I highly suggest doing that, because I have to do it on a regular basis as well, because how many times do we create things that sometimes people love and sometimes nobody even touches it? Anywhere. You're like, do you have any idea what I put into that?
Yes, that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, I have so much trauma around like doing so many creative endeavors that I put everything into and like they didn't go anywhere. That's it.
Yeah. And then how that's actually going to help you, and how it's actually how it's helped you in the past and what you learned from it. And another cool question too is, because when we think about when we go through those challenges, it's like, who did we connect with at that time because we were so stressed out? And how did it deepen?
You
totally did.
You're during the time when I was making that course. Yeah.
I don't want you to stop struggling because I love the connection that we got out of it. Sorry, not sorry. Ah, and it's really cool. And sometimes we disconnect from people, and then it's to be honest with ourselves too, where it's like, well, how are we done with that relationship? How are we ready to shift and move on? Like, how did that challenge actually give me permission to walk away from something that maybe I was afraid to walk away from? You know, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. And like I said, really important for entrepreneurs who are building a business because we have all these little moving parts in the back that nobody sees. That if we get exhausted from doing, we get frozen. Yeah.
It's true. Building a business, being an entrepreneur, and like especially like with a mission,
Yes.
you have to work through a lot of stuff.
Oh, biggest soul journey I've ever been on.
It's true. Yes. Oh, yay. It's so good to connect with you, babe.
I know.
How can people find your mini course?
Oh, okay. So I'll put a link in the bottom of this as well. But it's just going to be my website, carlypepin.com/fear. And I'll put a link on the bottom as well. And basically what I do is just kind of like I ask you questions. I have specific questions on there for people that they can take through themselves. And I have a bunch of videos that I made to go with it. So I could start to like ignite ideas in your head and get you into your subconscious mind so you can really ask the questions, and then how to transform some of it, because I want you guys to really be able to put this into action and actually get to the other side and transform it.
I want to say a quote from I think it was Meryl Streep said it.
Okay.
Or maybe it was Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, who said it.
Okay.
Take your broken heart and turn it into art. I think that kind of like sums up the journey of like all of us have had such deep, horrible things that have happened. But if we can really see that we would never be who we are without all of those things. And it's really our broken heart that is creating our art, that is driving us to be exactly who we are meant to be on the planet.
Perfectly said. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, babe. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of our listeners. And check out Carly. And I love you, babe. And I'll speak to you soon. Mwah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.